Today I'm talking about Generation Z. Gen Z is one of the most politically active generations we've seen in decades, but a lot of folks are saying that Gen Z is the most conservative generation we've seen in a really long time, and that Gen Z is bringing back our good old-fashioned American values. But is this true? Most of the folks I know think that Gen Z is just a bunch of lazy slackers that want their college for free. So where is this coming from? Is Gen Z really the most conservative generation? That's what I'm discussing today. I'm getting into the facts, where this is coming from, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts, Liberty friends. What do you think? Is Gen Z the most conservative generation ever? You've probably heard that most people start off pretty liberal and get more conservative as they get older. But this isn't necessarily true with Gen Z. This is probably because Gen Z has lived through some pretty crazy and turbulent times. But it's also because they have a lot more access to information than older generations did. They're not relying on a newspaper or the evening news or for their parents to explain political issues to them. They all have a smartphone and they know how to use it. They look up political issues for themselves, they research the facts, and they think pretty independently. In fact, a lot of Gen Z have their own political blogs, political YouTube channels, or they're politically active on social media. Sure, there's a whole lot of Generation Z that's apathetic and don't care, but that's pretty typical for this age bracket. However, when you compare Generation Z to previous generations, they are much more politically engaged. In 2022, 27% of 18 to 29-year-olds showed up and voted. This might not seem significant, but it is the second highest turnout of young voters in that age bracket in over 30 years. This generation cares, and they show up to vote. I did some research, and I've also written a blog post on this and left a link to that in the description. So I looked at voting data from Tufts University. They did a report on the last 2022 election, and I found some interesting information that kind of helps make sense of why some people are saying Gen Z is so conservative. So according to their research, Gen Z primarily voted for Democrats, and there are a lot of news stories saying that Gen Z might have helped to stop the red wave. And I was like, if they voted for Democrats, why are people saying they're so conservative? But when you look at the numbers, you can see where this might be coming from. So according to their research, 53% of Gen Z males voted for Democrats. But when you look at the females, 71% of Gen Z females voted for Democrats. So there's a significant difference in voting patterns from Gen Z males and Gen Z females. So then I looked a little deeper at the data. And if you look at the rural areas, which is predominantly white areas, 64% of young Gen Z voted for Republicans in this area. So I speculate that this concept that Gen Z is more conservative is coming from white young males that think that they're more conservative because most of their peers are, or the people they associate with. But I have another theory as to why people think this. When I started researching this, I went through and looked at a ton of YouTube videos and blog posts from people saying that Gen Z is more conservative. And I noticed a pattern. Almost everyone making these videos were young white men. But I noticed another pattern. Some of them were saying that Gen Z is not just more conservative, they're more edgy and less PC. And I think this is true. According to Pew Research, 2/3 of men think that people are offended too easily. And so I think what you're seeing is some young conservative white men that are in fact being more edgy and more bold and more aggressive in their messaging. We're seeing a lot of this in the Libertarian Party. So this may give the perception to the people watching them that Gen Z is more conservative and more edgy. But I think this is just an illusion, because when you look at the data, Gen Z is not actually more conservative, but they might be more libertarian. There was a couple of other interesting takeaways on Gen Z in the voter data, though. Gen Z males might be slightly more conservative, but Gen Z females certainly are not. And I believe a lot of how they voted in the last election had to do with the issue of abortion. According to a survey by Her Campus, 86% of the women they surveyed said that their personal view on abortion would affect how they voted, and 87% of those women said that it was the most important issue for them. So Gen Z female might be conservative with economics, but they're not socially conservative, and they're certainly pro-choice. One significant group among Gen Z voters is the LGBTQ voter. 20% of Gen Z voters identified as LGBTQ, and 93% of those voters voted for Democrats, which is really not surprising. I've mentioned in other videos that Gen Z is a lot more open-minded and tolerant than other generations, and I think the LGBTQ community is going to show up in the next election to defend their right to live their life the way they see fit. And I want them to know that the Libertarian Party has always embraced and supported LGBTQ voters and your community long before the Democrats. So this community is definitely not socially conservative and makes up a pretty large percentage of Gen Z voters. Gen Z is the most racially and ethnically diverse generation we've had so far, and they are also more open-minded and tolerant and more politically active than previous generations. But they vote differently. They vote generally based on issues that matter to them, more so than based on political parties. And they have a mix of political views. A lot of them care about climate change and finding alternative energy sources. Even among conservatives, they care about these issues and aren't dismissive of them. This generation, I think, is more libertarian than any generation we've had so far, because they don't squarely fit into a Republican Party box or a Democratic Party box. And I think many of them struggle to figure out what political party they belong in. So a lot of them are economically conservative. You can hear it among Gen Z. A lot of them don't like Biden any more than they like Trump. They think Biden has been bad for the economy, and they are economically conservative while also socially liberal. And I think a lot of them, if they learned more about the Libertarian Party, would realize that they are our most libertarian generation so far. But I'd like your thoughts. After hearing everything I've had to say, do you think Gen Z is more conservative, more liberal, or more libertarian? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked my video, please click the like button and subscribe. I'm trying to grow this channel with more liberty-minded folks like me, and I so appreciate all your support. I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Patty from Patty for Liberty.